Dan Furman,
I love it.
the fellow friar from
Oh, yeah.
from the Delaware County area. Dude, I'm pumped to catch up with you, man. This will be fun. Just been keeping tabs on what you've been doing through
I
social
appreciate it,
media and
man.
everything like that
Same
in the
to
last
you.
couple of years. Yeah, dude, it's sweet what you've been able to do from headed to Pitt down to Louisville. So yeah, dude, this will be cool.
I appreciate it, man. A couple of I would say Delco guys chatting it up a little bit, so it's good, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, dude, not to go all the way back, but I figure with some of these, I kind of get a little
Yeah.
bit of the backstory. But Bonner, so you played against each other at Bonner, and then you ended up at Pitt. What was the process of getting to Pitt and
Yeah.
that story?
No, it was honestly crazy. Like you know how it is. Like when you're growing up in, and I feel like our age group was that first group of guys in my opinion, or just like that really started to set the tone in Delaware County. And a lot of times, like there was this message that it wasn't, D1 wasn't really a reality, right? Like back then, and if you played at St. Joe's, LaSalle, or Villanova, like you were above and beyond everybody else, right? So I think as time went on, like for me, I knew that was the aspiration of what I wanted to do, and always had the aspirations of playing in the ACC and playing at North Carolina or one of those schools. And crazy enough, I probably wasn't good enough to do that, but ultimately, like it wound up being a situation where Pitt was in the Big East transitioning into the ACC. It was kind of like the perfect storm. I was really under recruited coming out of high school. I had no idea, what I was doing. I was a first child, man. So it was like my parents didn't know what was going on or what they were doing. So I've been fortunate. I have two brothers below me that had a little bit of an easier process, or at least a more informed process. But Pitt was always a place that's like, man, for the second that I stepped on campus, it was unbelievable. There's that feel. It's a little bit of a mix between like a Midwest city and Philadelphia. So it's got that East Coast vibe a little bit, but then also has the weather, the culture. It's a pretty cool city, man. Like Pittsburgh's got it going on. It's a great city.
Yeah,
So,
dude.
committed there and ran with it. And I won't say that every step of the way was easy. That's for sure. Like there was no transfer portal at the time. So you used to have to either go junior college or sit out a year, which probably was good for me. It was the best decision I ever made, sticking out the 4 years and playing there for my entirety of my college career. But it's cool. Like I look at some of the guys that we played against in high school, right? And even like you went on, you played at Seton Hall. You had guys like Jimmy Haley who went on and played at Penn State. Like it was cool to see us all kind of stay in that region. And we never played in college, did we?
No, we never played
in
Pitt.
college.
No, we never played Penn State either.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't think we ever did. No,
it's crazy. Like all those teams like Pitt, Penn State, Seton Hall, we would go south in the winter, right? You go play February, March, and you'd go down to Florida, you'd go to the Carolinas and play in those tournaments and those experiences, man. Like that was something I'd never trade in. And I think a lot of guys they lose sight of that now. But at the same time, it's at the end of the day, college sports they're what you make of it. And I think that's what's kind of driven me to where I am and what got me into college sports is like that student athlete experience is still there. That opportunity for guys to continue to grow and learn, and that system, it's still there, even though there's a lot of money involved in it now. And I think that it's just a unique experience for guys. And I think that all of us share that kind of like brotherhood of, you played Division I baseball in college. So it's an opportunity for all of us to network and continue to grow, in our careers and in life.
Well said, dude. Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, because that was what over a decade ago at this point. It was like 12 years ago when that's what I tell people that when I'm talking to them about
why I 2013
and then I'm like, wait, it's 2017 when I graduated college. That's coming up on 10 years. So date ourselves a little bit here, but yeah, man, it really is what you make of it. And I'm sure it's the same with you. A lot of the relationships that you had at Pitt, I think, like those are guys that probably were in your wedding and that you're still tight with today. Right. So it's awesome. Yeah.
It's crazy because when we were going through, and you went to all boys high school too. So you're like, when you look back on your high school experience, that's all everybody told you while you were in high school. It's like, these are the best years of your life. These are the guys that are going to be in your wedding. This could be this. and it's crazy. Like those, I still stay in touch with some of those guys, but ultimately, like it's those college teammates that, like they'll be. I mean, anytime you need something, those are the guys that are there. You've been through it all with those guys, so it's a pretty cool brotherhood that I think will last. It'll last a long time. That's for sure.
Definitely, man. Yeah, you're in the trenches with those guys, but
Yeah, no doubt.
So dude, so not to skip ahead here, but you've gone down a unique path, I would say, to a lot of guys that, at least that I know, that are, working good jobs and working different careers, but you've gone down a unique path. What was the origin of you kind of getting into college athletics? Did you want to do that when you were at Bonner and then at Pitt? Was that always something you wanted to do?
I don't think I had any idea what I wanted to do, right?
Yeah,
just like any other, just like most college juniors at the time. Like I'll never forget. I was actually a college senior. It was the fall of my senior year. This was probably like August, September-ish time frame. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I had gotten to know some of our senior administrators at Pitt through just being a part of the baseball team. I was the president of our student athlete advisory committee. So got exposed to a lot of the conversations that were going on day to day from an athletic department standpoint. And I did get really close with our deputy AD at the time. His name was Dan Bartholomew. He's actually the AD at Western Michigan now, who just recently hired our old offensive coordinator, Lance Taylor. They're getting football rolling again. So it's pretty cool, like how the industry all starts to intertwine.
Yep.
But realistically, like I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I got invited to the athletic director, Scott Barnes' suite one night at a Pitt football game. Pitt, I think we were playing Marshall at home. So I go in the suite and I sit down and Dan just starts kind of like grilling me a little bit. He's like, dude, what are you going to do next? He's like, you ain't playing pro baseball. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're definitely right. Like I've never really thought about that. But, he was like, you got to try and figure out what's next. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, how do I do what you do? Like, you look like you got a pretty good job. Like, you're out here, you're working. This is considered work for you. Like, you're out here watching a football game. And, wound up, he called Scott Barnes over, and I started having a conversation with Scott Barnes about it. And a couple weeks later, I was, sitting in Scott's office, and I'll never forget, like that was when Pitt had like a big Nike contract, and they were going on the road about to go on the road for a football game. And so I'm like sitting in Scott's office before they leave, and he's like decked out in this like sweet Nike outfit. And I'm like, dude, this job, he's got it going on. This is
what I want to
do. So, I have the conversation, and he recommends me to go down to Greensboro and apply for this job interview at the ACC. So it was basically like an operations intern at the ACC, and it was working in championships. So you were helping, work on football, men's basketball, women's basketball, but then primarily focused on like baseball, track and field, more of the Olympic sports style championships. So you were getting the true like behind the scenes of college athletics, and you were working with head coaches, you were working with directors of operations, athletic trainers. You saw a lot of college sports that I think in my mind gave me an awesome foundation for what I do now. Right. So like, I wound up going down there and was there for meetings at the ACC conference office, which used to be in Greensboro. And I'm texting back and forth with Dan while I'm there, and our SWA at the time, Jen Toscano at Pitt. And she was like, go knock on the door to the left in the lobby. And Chris Pierce, who was my boss at the ACC, like her office was tucked around the right-hand side of this hallway. So I like knock, and of course, like Chris answers the door. And I wind up sitting in Chris's office for like a half hour having this conversation about what I want to do and what I'm going to do next. And probably a month later, I got hired to be the ACC championships intern and kind of took a leap, man. Like I think they gave me like $800 or $900 a month stipend.
So you can't be making much.
Picked up my life and moved to Greensboro right after graduating from college. And I don't know if other than a couple of times, like don't know if I'd ever been there before that. Like we're from Philly. I'm not going to small towns in North Carolina very often. And, wind up making my way to Greensboro, lived there for a year and had literally like a recliner and a TV in an apartment. Like, and just, it was kind of roughing it a little bit, but
yeah,
I learned a lot during the course of that year of what I actually wanted to do. And after I accepted that position, like I was in a couple of different presentations from athletics administrators at Pitt. And one of the conversations was the head of development at the time who gave a presentation on student athletes. how the whole experience works. And I'm like thinking to myself, like, dude, I'm a pretty bad baseball player most days that I show up here, right? But they're calculating out all these numbers and like scholarships and travel with the team and nutrition and all this stuff that's going into this. And donors are basically paying on average, it was $75,000 per student athlete. And that's what they were spending on the student athlete experience. I'm like, dude, this is sick. Like, this is the coolest. I like thought the 4 years that I was at Pitt was the coolest thing I'd ever been a part of. So I'm like, how do I do this for people moving forward? And I wanted to get into fundraising. I wanted to get into development and work with donors to provide those types of experiences, build facilities, do things that were transformational for athletic departments and communities as a whole. And honestly, like, I've kind of found a home at Louisville, right? Like, I don't know that I ever expected it to work out this way, but I finished up at the ACC, and I'm literally at a track championship in Miami with Christine Herring, who was the old SWA, and she's like, "You want to work at Louisville?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's like, you can't joke around about that kind of thing. Like, I'm all in on that." And the next day, I was on the phone with the guy who's pretty much been my boss here for seven-ish years, Michael Dudas, and we've had a blast, man. Like, it's been a lot of fun. We've been through a lot. We've been riding the ups and downs of college sports, and that's kind of led us to where we are now in this NIL space. But I mean, nobody's hiding the fact that like Louisville's had their hands full over the last 10 years. But ultimately, it's been a blast, and I think it's been a lot of fun. And I think the department's definitely back on an upswing, and it's our job from an NIL standpoint to make sure that we leverage it and help however we can.
It's great, man. Yeah, thanks for
that was a long-winded.
No, thanks for the background, man. I mean, it's awesome because I was just one of the things I was thinking about when you were saying that. It's like, yeah, just thinking back to my time at Seton Hall, you get treated really well, and for a lot of guys that don't go on to play professional sports, like you mentioned that $75,000 number, that's, I mean, you're important to that. Like, yeah, you're important.
Spending that on me,
Yeah,
like
right.
Literally was like just riding around eating the peanut butter and jellies that were left on the thing because I wasn't playing.
Yeah, like, the guy that goes out and goes 1 for 5. Yeah, you're giving him $75,000. But it is for a lot of guys, especially if you don't go on to play professional baseball, or even if you do go on to play professional baseball, the situations in terms of living and what you're getting paid, it's really not what it is as a college athlete, especially at the level that you're at now. I mean, some of these Louisville athletes do with NIL, which we'll start to talk about, but I mean, you're getting treated pretty well. Yeah,
especially now with NIL, there's athletes across the country that are in much better situations now than if they were to be on their rookie deal. And that's how the industry has evolved, right? And I think that there's nothing. The one common consensus around fans is like NIL is bad, and then it's not good for college sports. Like, college sports is in a really good spot, man. There's a lot of exciting times ahead. We just had one of the most exciting 12-team playoffs. Like, it is going to continue to grow, and I think it's an avalanche, man. Like, there's going to be more exciting times for college sports to continue to take the next step and professionalize and mature what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, man, like, athletes do need to be compensated, right? Especially football and men's basketball in this sense of the type of revenue that they're driving to these schools and athletic departments, the type of exposure they're giving them both nationally and now, internationally. We're in the middle of the recruiting process right now for next year's men's basketball team, and there are a lot of international conversations, right? And as you continue to build that brand, it's invaluable. You can't pay for it. Like, the university can't put a dollar amount on the interaction that the brand is having both in the U.S. and internationally, especially if you're winning. And we're going through that stretch right now. We're finally winning again. You win 12 games in 2 years, and now basketball is on the upswing I think it's a 9-game win streak now. In the ACC.
I saw. And they have a big one coming up. Yeah, big one coming up against Wake Forest. Is that right? I was just looking at that.
It'll be a dog fight next week. Ford's good coach, and I think they play a really interesting style, man. They're tough, they're long, they're athletic. So it'll be interesting.
Cool. So then, that was one of the things you said, because I was looking that up before this too, that Carson Beck going to Miami. Yeah. That he'll end up making more at Miami than Bo Nix would in the second year of his rookie contract. Yeah. So maybe just for
like $4 million 1-year deals. The Mensa kid at Duke will be in a similar ballpark.
Yeah. Yeah, you just put out a video on that. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the same number, but like we went out, we got a big time quarterback in the portal. Like these guys across the country are it's so good for them because they have an opportunity to develop. Like as much as we're saying, okay, well they don't need to make that kind of money. Realistically, man, like if you've got an opportunity to make that kind of money that could replace the rookie deal in year one, it gives you another year in college to actually, your 365 days with somebody developing you and investing in you to make sure you're winning come Saturdays in the fall. And in our situation, like Jeff Brom does an unbelievable job doing that. There's obviously other quarterback coaches across the country that are attractive for guys that are big time picks in the NFL draft that want to come back and develop and learn for one more year. And in Carson Beck's situation, it's a no brainer, right? You get to go coming off an injury, you get to go compete at the highest level of college football and try and go win a national championship. I mean, Miami's going to be loaded. So,
yeah.
He's gonna have an opportunity to do what Cam Ward just did, right? Cam just went down there and went from being probably a middle round pick out of Washington State last year to the guy he may be the first quarterback off the board. So it's that's you're starting to see the playbook a little bit, but they don't have to do that anymore with nothing in their pocket, right? They're not taking a complete 100% sacrifice by not taking that extra year of development. I think. I would love to hear kind of like the NFL executive approach to that. Like, I think it's good for football all around. I think it's good for everybody. And I think that these kids coming into the NFL with more of a business acumen than they were before helps them. But at the same time, like the development piece is huge. These guys are ready to play right away. I mean, we just had a kid, Tyler Shuck, who came in. He had battled some injuries here and there, and came to us and had a phenomenal year. And guys can be a third, fourth round pick come the draft. So it's a good situation for him.
Yeah, no, for sure. But so can you just give some of the background on it a little bit, like an NIL for dummies maybe, because you see that number, right? You see that $4 million, $8 million number at face value as a casual fan. And you're like, why are these 19-year-olds getting paid millions of dollars? How is this even happening? Now, obviously, if you go back 10 years, it was happening, just not really.
Under the table.
It was under the table. But I mean, even from when you started, the evolution of it is probably bizarre. So then even, like 502 Circle, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. But just like at a high level, can you just explain how that even happens? Like, how does he get paid that much?
I'll try and break it down as simple as possible.
in the next half hour.
There's definitely nothing straightforward about NIL, that's for sure. It's honestly like a lot of living life in the gray in a sense. But ultimately NIL over the course of time, like these athletic departments, especially at the Power 4 level now, are somewhere like most of these are 130 to 150 $1 million athletic departments that operate year over year. And they burn through cash, right? So they basically have $150 million budget. Well, they some of them are spending more than that, like blowing through the budget, right? But that's just the cycle that these departments are on. That when you really break it down, like if you take out some of the employment conversations and let's just say you're paying your player payroll a certain amount of money, like when you break it down and you look at the big picture, it's not that much of your overall athletic department budget. And football and men's basketball are driving a majority of that revenue, if not, most of it at majority of schools. So you look at it in the sense of, is it fair? Is it right? It has to be in a sense, what business do you have like free labor and guys that typically don't receive any type of compensation for all the work that they do to make that type of money? And I think that's where it becomes a fine line, and it gets interesting because the everyday fan is buying season tickets and they're coming to games and they're buying food at the concession stands. They're supporting the overall ecosystem. But just like in the pro model, those guys are being compensated on the back end based on how well the team is doing. There's bonus structures set into what they're doing as the Eagles continue to push through the playoffs. Like those guys are one of the highest paid teams in the league, right? It doesn't happen by accident. But you see it every week, man. There's not a seat empty in that place every Sunday that they're at home. So I think that's what you're trying to create. You're trying to create an ecosystem that continues you're investing in the players to win games and see an ROI so that the department continues to make money, right? There can't just be you're not just putting cash in a bucket, blowing it up. So there's got to be some rhyme or reason to why you're investing on the NIL side and why you're investing in the athletes, because ultimately you're trying to make money in return. And the ACC has a unique setup where there's there's performance-based incentives at football based on how you do during the course of the season. You make a bowl game, it's X amount of dollars in incentive money. If you win,
for players too,
it goes directly to the school, which in return gives the opportunity to find a way to redirect it. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Like all in all, right. It's just that, like I said, you got to look at it from a big picture point of view. Like everybody tries to break it down and say X player makes X dollars. And it really isn't that's not the case. Like you have to look at it from a big picture point of view. Every roster has a total number amount. And I try and look at it as this player eats up X amount of the cap space, right? And overall, if you spend X amount of dollars, let's just say you spend this year in college football, like Ohio State, they spent $20 million on that roster. I think everybody's been pretty straightforward in telling that story. They spent like 20 million or roughly 20 million and they won a national championship. The amount of money that they're going to make on that in return for the investment, it's pretty special. So I think as this continues to grow, you're going to see more and more schools continue to jump into the equation. Like I'm hearing right now that Virginia is going all in on football, right? So like as this continues to grow and revenue share continues to become more and more relevant in college sports, you're going to see teams double down to try and go make money because it's the only way for these departments to continue to move forward and have success.
Yep. So then as an NIL collective, because that's something that I was just listening to you say on a couple, like that's 502 Circle, and then a lot of the NIL money is collective driven. Is that accurate?
I would say majority.
How does that work? Yeah,
I would say majority of it in college sports is coming from an NIL collective. So pretty much every school.
So what is an NIL collective?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. We wear a lot of hats, and some days you're a talent and acquisition arm for football and men's basketball, and some days even baseball. And then other days you're a fundraising and donor support system. So you're going out and trying to find ways to generate revenue and give yourselves opportunities to maximize the brands that our players have and leverage that with the university's brand. So we're doing a lot of marketing. We're pushing our student athletes to the forefront in the community. We've also now created that social media piece. Like we've launched Floyd Street Media, which is an athlete-driven media network that's engulfing our student athletes and creating opportunities for us to monetize their brands in return for the work that they're doing. And I think that only gives them more opportunities as we continue to grow this thing, right? So not only are they growing their brand naturally and organically through being on camera, hosting shows, hosting podcasts, those types of things, but then at the same time, we're able to go sell that ad space, sell those opportunities to local companies and brands here in the city, and then work with other groups to go sell it nationally, right? So at the end of the day, like we're trying to make money to support Louisville Athletics. So we're working with our donors day in and day out that they've been unbelievable. Like our donor base here is ridiculous. They've gotten behind us from day one. They jumped in. Like everybody had like the phase where collectives, it was taboo. Nobody wants to pay the players, yada, yada. Right. Well, our donors were like, hey man, this could be an opportunity for us to get ahead, get back to where we were 10 years ago. Put a good product out there. Go try and win championships. Right. And we've been pretty straightforward about that. Right. Like if you support the NIL collective, we're able to put a better product on the field. And I feel like football, we're in a pretty good spot. We were kind of a ceiling a couple of years ago was 8 wins, right? And you had 9 wins this year, 10 wins last year, ACC championship appearance last year. This year, I felt like, this is just me. I felt like we underachieved a little bit. You had a team that probably could have made a run at being really competitive in that 12-team playoff. But ultimately, like I feel like we've built a foundation that is here for, it's here to stay. And from an NIL collective standpoint, we're just continuing to try and grow and adjust and adapt as revenue share becomes real, right? A revenue share is going to launch here in April, May of this year. How does every school adjust? And I think that a lot of schools are going to go ahead and try and move everything in house and control it. And I think that's all right. Like there are going to be schools that take on a lot of that responsibility, but how do you set yourself apart? It's the same conversation that's been happening in college sports forever, right? Like your coaches at Seton Hall, man, were always trying to find an advantage, right? And if they could have found an advantage in your recruiting process, they were going to do it. So I find it hard to believe that collectives are going anywhere. in this space. I think they're going to try and regulate them a little bit, but ultimately, I think the best schools and the best programs in the country are going to try and use NIL collectives to be that kind of supplemental NIL. A lot of ADs use the term of like fringe benefits. So like they're paying the guys in-house, and then we're providing cars, additional bonus structures, all that kind of stuff on top of their agreements with the school. So there's a lot of moving parts right now, man, but it's a crazy business that ultimately you're a marketing agency for athletes at Louisville or athletes at Ole Miss or athletes at Tennessee. And I think if you can grow linear in that space, then you're going to have a lot of success.
Yeah, definitely. But you can see that. So when you're talking through that, like you can see that for the Louisvilles of the world, Texas, Alabama's, right? I mean, the schools that essentially the rich will get richer and they have this huge alumni base, but then what happens to a Seton Hall of the world that is like they lose their best player to St. John's? They don't. I don't know what their NIL. I don't know any of the money behind that, but I would bet it's a fraction, if that, of Louisville.
Is that
right?
The Kadari Richmond story that I think Tino was talking about that the other night?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just the other night. I think he scored like 15 against them or something like that.
It's real. It's real, man. Like it's real, and it's a real conversation because I always, I'm a little bit of a homer in a sense, or I love college basketball. Like we grew up when we were growing up, like it was Jameer Nelson, Delonte West, and those guys at St. Joe's. Villanova was always good. We were following that. The big
like Scotty Reynolds and Curtis Sumter. A
lot of fun, right? So it's like when I look back on that, that's why I love being around Louisville basketball, like the tradition, the history behind the program. Like I remember the Big East days. Like I remember going to games at Pitt when Peyton Siva and Russ Smith came in and were just like dominating. Those guys were unbelievable. Montrezl Harrell and all those guys. So
a great era of Big East,
so fun. But I think that the Big East actually has a ton of upside. Like I think if you're looking at a Seton Hall, you don't have football. Like in my mind, if you still have that cap space, you got to find a way to be as aggressive as possible, go win in men's basketball. So I think that, while a lot of schools are, like a Louisville, right, you got to be able to be competitive in both football and men's basketball. Like if I'm Seton Hall, man, I'm going to be really aggressive and go try and win in men's basketball while I can. And how can I set myself apart in the NIL market that it's pretty out there? Like kids want to come to Seton Hall and play men's basketball. And that's what we did this year in basketball, right? Like we had 12 wins in 2 years, and there were conversations about like, and I say this like half jokingly, but not really, like when we were going through the head coach, the hiring process, we as a group, like as a unit and what we do from an NIL standpoint, like those individuals, we were literally having the conversation of, Dan, go tell every agent and every player that we can get in front of, like we are paying more than everybody else. Like we're going to be aggressive. Wow. We're going to go back to, like, we're going to be nationally relevant again. And it's not going to take 1 year. It's not going to take 2 years. Like we're going to do it. Like when this portal cycle is over, people are going to be talking about Louisville men's basketball. And, that was the approach that we took. And Pat and his staff, I give them a ton of credit, man. They dove into it and they bought in from day one to what we were doing. And, there was like no pushback at all. They dove in, and they're so good. Like the attention to detail and the way that they run their program, like they're so competitive, and every little thing that they do with a meaning and with a purpose. And I think in college basketball now, man, that's going to win. Like if you can coach and you can get the players, like you've got a pretty deadly combo, because a lot of schools right now are dealing with one or the other. I think we've got a really cool combo of both, and Pat's got a really cool runway here to go make some noise. And I think, like I said, I'm like losing count at this point, but I think we're like a 9-game win streak in the ACC and sitting in second place. And I'd love another shot at Duke, but I think we'll see him in the ACC tournament. It's going to be fun, man. It'll be a fun finish for us.
Yep. Yeah, I see. I saw the videos of him. I mean, he's electric, right? He's going around campus, just like telling all the students to show up to the games and everything like that.
He always says like coffee's afraid of him in the morning. Like he's got that much energy, like and he's probably right. I'll never forget this. I'll tell this story. I don't know if he's heard me tell this story before, but when I've been trying to get used to the staff, right? We've got a whole new coaching staff, and everybody has different personalities. Our football staff is like super intense. Like I don't go anywhere near them during game week. Like they just do their thing, right? Well, basketball, I'm like starting to get used to like the ebbs and flows. It's a smaller staff. There's less guys. Like it's a little, they're locked in, but it's a little bit more of like a family environment over there. So we're getting geared up to leave for the Bahamas over the summer. And I'm thinking like, yeah, everybody's got to be excited to get a few days away, you know. Like PK, like there was none of that. Like PK had no interest in going down there and not blowing both teams out. Like he wanted to be perfect. And it was the first time that they were stepping on the floor. So I like walk in the building, I walk upstairs and I go in his office. He's not there, but he sits across the way his office is set up. He's got a massive office, and then across the hallway, there's a conference room, like a meeting room. And he'll always sit at the head of the table in the meeting room. And like he literally will rehearse practice for like an hour, 90 minutes before practice every day. Like dude goes into practice more prepared than some coaches go into a game.
Yeah.
So I walk upstairs and I literally walk in, I like dab him up and I'm like, what's going on, man? Like everything good? Family's good? And he just like dead stares at me and he goes, hey, I love you, man, but you got to get out of here. And I'm like, man, what happened? Are we good? So I like walk downstairs. I go back to the court. I like a couple of coaches. I'm like, PK good, man? Like just said what's up. He's like, get out, like get away from me. And they were like, bro, are you out of your mind? Like you don't talk to PK like within like 90 minutes of practice ever. Like the dude is locked in. Like he don't want to hear from you. Like he's ready to go. And moving forward, I was like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere near this guy until it's time until he comes up to me before practice. Like it's time for him to go, And he's like down to a T, man. This guy's locked in. He's trying to build it.
Type AAA, yeah.
Yeah, he's no joke, man. Like it's full tilt all the time. Like I think it's Rothstein puts out every game. It's like Pat Kelsey, no breaks. Like literally, he's genuine when he says that. Like the guy has no pullback. He's coaching like it's the other night our guys. We were at SMU. We were in Dallas, and I leaned over to our basketball administrator with there were like 5 minutes left in the game. We're up by 25, and we have guys like diving into the stands for balls. And I'm like, dude, like, can somebody make sure we don't get hurt? Like we only have like 7 guys in the rotation right now. We've got guys flying into the first row after a loose ball, but that's just the way that's the level of excellence that he plays with. And like literally, I say this, like that's how they practice. Like that's how they literally go to breakfast. Like everything they do is full speed, and it's cool to watch, man. You get it from a college athletics experience. Like if a coach can get that repetition out of you, a coach can get that level of excellence. Like it's crazy how far he can get it. But
that's what it takes, man. Yeah, that's what it takes. I mean, you set that. I mean, there's a guy. He reminds me of Danny of Hurley a little bit, just with the intensity and
you gotta love that comment the other night.
Maniac.
He said, don't turn your back on me. I'm the best coach.
Yeah, I'm the best coach.
Love it.
And nobody really questions it. They're like, all right, that's just kind of.
What do you think of all these coaches? Like, what do you think of you've got guys like Jay Wright, obviously, who kind of like started the whole trend. And then you had Tony Bennett, you got Jim Larinaga. Like these guys, they're calling it quits, man. Like NIL has kind of run its course and these guys are ready to be done with it. Like, what are your thoughts on some of that?
I mean, it's a shame, I guess, because you see some of the best coaches, especially Jay Wright, he's stepping away because of the NIL stuff. But I don't know. It's like at the same time, they just probably don't want to deal with everything that goes into it. I mean, they're traditionalist guys. I don't know, man. I mean, it sucks, because you see some of the best coaches, Nick Saban, but it's almost like they go on to have these incredible media careers afterwards. At least you see Saban on TV,
Saban too,
and then Jay Wright. But
it's so funny.
I don't know. I mean, dude, you see under the hood, it's like, why would they not want to deal with it? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you see, I can imagine that other guys that are in similar positions at other collectives or even athletic directors at this point are like, every time, it's like a double-edged sword in a sense. Like you're winning a lot of games, but then you're like watching guys play really well and you're like, yeah, man, like that's incredible. But then you're getting in the car after the game. You're like, hey, dude, how are we going to afford this next year? Like how are we going to figure this out? Like every time they make a 3, like the number goes up, and it's it's a cool, like it's a cool experience, but at the same time, it's nerve wracking because your fans are like living and dying by this thing. And you just never want to let them down. Right. You're like, I'm naturally like a people pleaser. Right. So like, I don't want to let anybody down. And I think that as you look at the unique situation that the Big East is in, like man, it's such a cool opportunity to like go run with it. Like you got this opportunity to go really hone in on men's basketball because you don't have the football piece attached to it. Like how high can you go almost?
Right.
And it's pretty cool. I think that, going back to your question, like Seton Hall, man, like I think Shaheen's a really good coach. I think there's a high ceiling there if they can keep him and go get him some players, because I do think he does a good job, and I think those guys have a pretty high ceiling. But those, like if you look around the Big East, those teams he goes up against every night they're just dogs night in, night out. It's a grown man's conference for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, even Villanova now. Yeah. Because that was the conversation for a little while with Jay Wright leaving. They're like, all right, man, they wanted, what's his name? The new coach. They were calling for his head for a year or two. And it seems like they kind of figured it out because it's not Jay. Neptune. Yeah. It's not his, like you're not running Jay Wright's. Jay Wright was just different, man. And he ran a different program. So now they're kind of finding their own identity. But yeah. And that's what Shaheen has said. He's like, I mean, this is what I'm going to have to deal with. I mean, it's evolving. I was just reading him, say something about that recently. It's like you can't complain about it because this is just where it's going. You have to adapt to what's happening.
How do you find ways to win at like Iona? And like I look at how good Iona's been over the last 10 years. Like you had two really good head coaches, right? And now they've got a third really good head coach in a row, but it's as the thing continues to evolve, how do you afford to go get the talent you need to, when you get to the NCAA tournament, you've got a chance to win every year. It's going to be interesting. You think about like some of the schools in CUSA, like Western Kentucky, who are just trying to find ways to separate themselves. Like, will Ja Morant ever end up at Murray State again? Like I don't know. I think that's where I think there's going to be a lot of change in college sports. But I think the basketball landscape is what is so interesting to me, because I think football generates so much revenue, right? And for most schools, you can see an ROI on football. We talk about this all the time here. Like we see an insane ROI on men's basketball because of the Yum Center, the tradition, the history. Like the Yum, when it's rocking, our ADs like flat out said this in interview or in press conferences when we've hired new coaches. Like the Yum Center is a money machine. Like the thing is constantly just if you can pack it, like you're good. The department's gonna be all right, and financially that's the goal, is you put a team on the floor that, every time we play at home, the place has 22,000 in there. And I think that at a lot of schools, they're not that fortunate. You don't have that type of situation. So like I look at like a Baylor in their situation last year. How do you spend the type of money that you're spending, but then at the same time, you don't even have, your arena has a cap on how much you can make, right? So it's just going to be interesting. And as college sports continues to grow, like you're not sitting in a football stadium with 60,000 seats. Like basketball arenas are, most college basketball arenas around the country are probably 8 to 10. We're fortunate. We got 22,000 seats and 75 suites and 2 rows of floor seats like an NBA arena. So we see the ROI. It can translate pretty fast. But how many schools can sustain that? So who's going to invest and who's not?
Yeah, man, it's crazy. So, well, dude, this is great, man. I appreciate you just.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, dude. I'm learning a ton just about. That's what from talking to Brenneman and what you guys are doing. So maybe I'll ask you about that a little bit too, like some of the content that you're putting out there, and it's cool because it's related to Floyd Street Media.
Yeah.
What's the goal there? Like just starting to put out some content and get the word out?
I mean, it's a great question. I'm trying to constantly figure it out. I think I've naturally always just loved like the entrepreneurial side of college sports and sports in general. And I think that when I saw Floyd Street Media launch back in August, we had a really quick like initial round of success. Like we did really well out of the gate. We live streamed our games in the Bahamas, and I was able to do some things that helped build my, not only my personal brand, but along with it, I was able to build the 502 Circle brand and the Floyd Street Media brand. So it's been cool to kind of take on that role a little bit. And then as it kept growing, it kept taking on a life of its own of like, and honestly, I credit a lot of it to Brenneman. Brenneman's like, you're being soft, dude. Like do your own content. So I'd say it doesn't all have to be about Floyd Street Media. Talk about college football, man. Talk about NIL and the primary reason for that, right, is like in life, you're always trying to find a niche, like find an empty space for yourself. And that's how I like day to day. I'm always trying to find opportunities, no matter what it is, whether it's in business, it's in life, it's ways to give us an advantage in football or men's basketball. And to be totally honest, like I saw there was nobody doing it. Like there's nobody sitting in front of a camera talking about college sports. There's nobody informing me on what NIL is going to look like, what roster management looks like in the transfer portal. So I saw a pretty unique opportunity to be able to go and build a market in that space. And while it takes time, man, it's gonna take a while to continue to grow it where I would like it to be. But that's why I think it's so cool. Like I wouldn't be sitting here having a conversation with you after, we probably haven't seen each other since high school. And it's like just the concept of it is cool because it's bringing a lot of people back into the fold that are, like you're doing well, man. You're ambitious. You're trying to grow your career, and on top of your day job, you got this podcast thing rocking. Like it's just it's bringing cool people back into the fold that I think is part of what life's all about, right? Yep. And it's you're continuing to grow your network with the right people, and I've really enjoyed it because it's opened a lot of new doors, and hopefully we'll continue to grow it, and who knows where it'll lead, man. You never know, but ultimately, in the meantime, it can never be bad, and it's just part of what we're doing right now. So it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely, dude. I love it. Well, especially, I mean, you're an expert in the space. Like nobody's really.
I don't know if anybody's an expert.
Well,
everybody's just figuring it out, man.
You're from the point that you got into where it is now. You've seen a lot. You've seen a lot of the evolution, I'll say. So the fact that you're putting it out there, and yeah, dude, that's how we got reconnected, I guess, is through Brenneman and then through Noah, who put us in touch. And yeah, if you're willing to put stuff out, that's something that I'm still working on myself, is like putting it out there. I got the page, but putting it out there on my personal stuff and everything.
You gotta trust it. You gotta trust it.
Gotta trust it, dude. Gotta trust it. Yeah, Brennan. Talk to him.
It's so funny because we live in like a social media universe, right? Like the world we live in is all people have access, and obviously you're going to get trashed. Like everything you do, people love to comment on it. But I always I talk to a lot of guys here, and it's funny. I talk to Nate about this a lot because he's going through minor league baseball. Like, dude, we're just all out here trying to make it, man. Like, there's no reason for all of us to be, so hostile and competitive with each other all the time. Like, we're all just trying to get to the same place. Like, everybody's out here trying to make it, trying to enjoy it, and be part of the ride. So it's like, it's been cool to see, the people who step up to help, along the way too. Like, those are, I'll always be thankful for those people. And, it's like sitting down, like you taking me on this podcast, right? Like it's unbelievable. Like, it's cool. It's crazy how the whole thing comes full circle. So it's good, man. It's all good stuff. And I'm gonna challenge you now, man. You got to keep doing it. I'm gonna have Brenneman send you a text.
Have him send me an aggressive text or something. Yeah, make me put it out there more. But
dude's all in. Yeah,
he really is, and you got to respect it, man, because there's going to be a lot of people that say a lot of haters, I guess, that don't want you to succeed. But there's also, like to your point, there's people that do. So
yeah, there's also people like it, and it's so crazy. Like, some people want to put people around you always try to put like a ceiling there for you, so you don't get outside the comfort zone that they're in. But at the same time, it's like, man, I'm doing this for me, man. I'm doing this for, continue to grow myself, challenge myself. And that's what we're here for. So it's been good, man.
Well said, brother. It's good place to leave off right there. So
hey, there you go.
Dan, this is great, man. Next time we do it, when you're back home, we'll link up at some point.
Yeah, we need to do that, man. We need to do that. No, I appreciate you having me on, man. We'll have to do it, here when I get back to Philly. I was half tempted to get home for that Eagles game on Sunday, but
oh man,
you going?
Yeah, but what are your? No, I don't think I'm going. But what are your thoughts?
Feel good about it. Hey, did you see the DC from Washington yesterday? He was saying like if Hurts gets out of the pocket, they're going to hit him like a runner.
Yeah,
I like Hurts in that situation.
I thought
on his shoulder.
I think so.
Probably not the guy to be trash talking. You got to know your audience a little bit.
Him, Saquon, they just they've got that feel around him right now, similar to a couple years ago.
Saquon he's out of control right now. I absolutely love the videos of the Giants front office, like sitting in a room, like, man, if Saquon goes to Philly, I'm not going to sleep well at night. And sure enough, like dude,
these guys haven't slept. They haven't slept since that video came out.
You're probably right. They're looking over their shoulder every Friday morning.
Oh man,
wondering if they're going to be getting let go that day. No doubt. That's how it works.
That's how it is, man.
Sports is a brutal business, man. It's a ruthless business. And, just like they wouldn't pay him. Somebody would, and he's going and performing. So we live with that day to day, man. And you just got to put your head down at night knowing did what we could. No doubt.
Yep, exactly.
I appreciate you, man. I'm glad we were able to do this. And like always, man, if you ever need anything from me or from our crew, man, always reach out. All right.
Back at you, brother. Yeah, thanks. Thanks again. We'll catch up soon.